ended up going to college in New Jersey, and when I was living in New Jersey for 4 years or 5 years, it took me a little extra to get out of college, okay? I went to New York a few times, and I really hated it. And I was about an hour and a half from New York, and I think I only went a few times, and it was really bad. And I remember my brother came to visit me, and he came out of the bus station, and he actually turned around and went back into the bus station. And he said he wasn't going to go in there. It looked so ugly just from the door of the bus station. And the Port Authority. So I really didn't like New York. And then, I don't know, somehow I had to work in New York. You know, I couldn't get work where I was living. And New York creates this big desert around it, the economic desert around it. You either have to work in New York or you can't work within 150 miles of New York. And that means you have to commute into New York. So that takes like 2 hours each way, no matter where you live. And so I had to get on a bus at, I don't know, 6 o'clock, drive to this Port Authority, 8 o'clock, take a half-hour subway down to the other place, and then get to work. It's like 2.5 hours or something. And I did that roughly for 16 years or something. And every time I was coming out of the subway, there would be some homeless people there. I even know their names because one of our nuns ended up taking care of them. So there's this lady named Brenda, and sometimes I'd be with this nun who worked at our company, and we'd be walking down the street, and she would stop and talk to Brenda and take care of Brenda, and sometimes take Brenda home and have a shower there and give her something to eat. But I think the main thing she used to do was to talk to Brenda and make her feel good. And then when I was by myself, I would go by Brenda, and I just feel uncomfortable. I would honestly feel very uncomfortable, and I couldn't stop. And I just felt like I was hoping Brenda wouldn't see me, and and I would kind of try to walk around her, or walk down the other side of the street, or not catch her eye, and just pretend I didn't see her or something. And I did this for like a year or something, and I always felt guilty. I'm a Buddhist monk, and I always felt really bad. I felt like I don't have any compassion, and I just feel uncomfortable around homeless people. I don't know how to relate to them. I don't know what to talk about. Do you want to hear about Shantideva? I don't know what to say. I can't think of it. They haven't seen any of the movies I've seen, and I don't know what to say to them. I just feel, I don't feel repulsed or anything. I just feel uncomfortable. I don't know what to talk about. Then I get to feeling bad because I feel like I'm not compassionate. Especially when I've worked all day long and I just got this paycheck, and then there's this guy saying, "Give me the money for free," and I'm like, "No, you go work in the office, and you can give me the money." And then I get on the subway and I'm going home, and I feel really guilty because I don't have any compassion. You know how you probably have the same thing. You have this instinct that it'd be really nice to feel real compassion. You feel like it'd be really, really nice to. You have an instinct that it would be wonderful to be compassionate, and you see the Dalai Lama, or you see people who seem to have great compassion. I think Trijang Rinpoche, the Dalai Lama's teacher, his face was just radiating compassion all the time, and you feel like jealous or something. You're like, I wish I could be like that. And you wish you could be like the nun who stops and talks to the homeless people and who makes them feel comfortable. And I always felt like it was the holy grail of my life if I could become compassionate. If I could learn to be like them, I'd be really happy. And then being American, you're wondering if there's any easy way to do it. I don't want to be like Mother Teresa. I just want to be compassionate. And I don't want to go to Calcutta and take care of, this gross leprosy cases for 20 years. Can I just do it some easy way, and get it, fast food kind of thing. And there is a method, and I was happy to find it, and it's kind of nice. It's really nice. It's called Tonglen'. Say Tonglen'.
Tonglen'.
Tonglen'. And it's a special meditation that you can do. Tong means to give away something, and len means to take something. And this is a special meditation that even started as long as, of course its roots begin with the Buddha, and it's taught very strongly. It's not called Tonglen at that point, but it's taught very strongly by Master Shantideva, who wrote the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life about 13 centuries ago. Then in Tibet, it was really made popular around 1000 AD by the Kadampas, and the people who wrote what we call lojong texts. So these are texts that how to make your heart pure, how to make your heart clean and compassionate, and that's called lojong. Especially by a bodhisattva called Tonglen'97, who lived about 1300. I think he was born in 1295. He wrote a very famous text about Tonglen. He wrote about Tonglen. And then the time of the first Panchen Lama. The Panchen Lama is like the second biggest Lama in Tibet. The Dalai Lama is normally considered the most important reincarnation. And then the Panchen Lama is often considered the second most important. And throughout history, it's often been the case that when the Panchen Lama was in his height, maybe 30, 40 years old, the Dalai Lama was just being reborn, and they would help each other sometimes. They would collaborate. Sometimes the Panchen Lama would teach the Dalai Lama and like that. And the first Panchen Lama was born in the 1600s, and he's very, very famous. He's a very great scholar of emptiness and all. But he also wrote a very famous book called Lama Chupa. And Lama Chupa is a special ritual for it's called making offerings to your lamas. How to make offerings to your lamas. It starts out almost like an offering to your lamas, and then somewhere towards the end, there's a long prayer in which you pray that you could get all the qualities of your lama. And then they go through all the qualities, and in each quality you're praying that you could get these qualities. And that ends up pretty much being an outline of what we call the Lamrim. The Lamrim, which in Tibetan, Lamrim means short books, sometimes longer, but a short outline of all the steps you need to get to Buddhahood. It's like, if you're like me, I don't have time. I use a lot of software, I use a lot of computers. I don't like to read the instructions. I like to just put the program in the computer and turn it on, and I just want it to. I don't ever read the book. I just try to see how, get me through it. There's always this thing called Quick Start or Easy Start, and it's a one-page thing that the engineers had to write at the last minute, and then they ship it with the software. I just put the book on the shelf, and I get the Quick Start thing, and it's got like 12 steps that you have to do. You don't have any choice. And Lamrim is like that. Lamrim is very beautiful. Lamrim is for people who want the Quick Start. And it's just a list of steps. If you do these 12 steps, you can get enlightened. It starts from the very beginning of Buddhism, and it goes up to the very end of Buddhism. And I thought you might like to see how this meditation fits into the Lamrim. You see, where does this meditation fit into that quick start list? Okay. And we're doing a project where we're trying to save all the great books of Buddhism. We estimate there are 200,000 great scriptures of Buddhism. Many were burned. We lost about 70% of them when Tibet was attacked by the Chinese. We still have not found about 70% of all the great books that were written in Tibetan. But we have teams all over the world. We have some went to Japan, some have gone to Mongolia. There's a team working in Russia, St. Petersburg right now, finding books there. We've cataloged like 50,000 books there. And we find the great ones, and then we send them back to India in copies, and then people type them in, and then we put them on CD-ROMs, and we give them away. And I think we've given away like 10,000 discs so far. And we just counted the countries. It's 59 countries so far. People like Iraqi, Iran or what? The Iraqi Ministry of Communication wrote us and said, we need a CD-ROM, We don't know what they're using it for. But But what it means is we have like 120,000 pages of really, really wonderful books on the computer, so you can sit there and play with it, and you can surf through it. And so before I came, I thought, well, I'll surf around Tonglen and see what I hit, you know. And so I hit like maybe 50 different explanations over the last 13 centuries. And they were really cool, so I just put them all together and we started translating it for fun. And we've been up all night for like a week. And we'll hand that out tonight. We'll start handing out pieces of it, and then maybe by the end we'll have it finished. Okay? But we put it into sections that present all the teachings on Tonglen in a logical way. And maybe this Lama explained one part very well, and this Lama explained another part very well. And so we put all those together in a big stream. It's like surfing through 13 centuries of neat stuff. And the first section you'll see is about the Lam Rim. All the steps from the beginning, the first day you become a Buddhist, up to the last day before you become a Buddha yourself. And it's really nice. I mean, the structure of that starts with finding a teacher, and then it ends with the day that you actually, in this life, enter an eternal paradise. Okay, and it's all the steps you need to do between there. Basically, the Lam Rim has 3 different steps. You could say that the first one is to try to reach. It's called Kebuchungu. Kebuchungu means for beginners or people that don't have a very big scope yet. And these people are mainly just trying to keep themselves out of the 3 lower realms. Okay? What are the 3 lower realms? You can't see them. You can see one of them, the animal realm. There's supposed to be a hell realm. There's supposed to be a realm of spirits that are tormented. You can't see them. It would be silly for me to get up here and try to convince you of them, even if I had seen them, you know, like I say, oh really, look, I've seen them, here's what they look like. And you say, well, how can I know that you're telling the truth? And I can say, look, I look like a good guy, right? And that's about all I can say, you know, I mean, I can say that all the scriptures describe these places, but it doesn't, I don't think you should go about it that way. All I can say is this, look, if you read Hamlet, the most famous line, to be or not to be, you know, this is the question. And I always used to wonder what it meant, to be or not to be. What? You know, and when I was a kid, I was like, what's the big deal? To be what? Not to be what? And then you know, when you get to a certain age in high school and they say, it was Mrs. Mortensen actually, and bless her soul, and she turned us on to Dante and Shakespeare. And anyway, it was, to kill yourself or not to kill yourself? That's the question. That's what Hamlet's asking himself. To be or not to be means, should I kill myself right now or not? Because life seems to be really bad. You know, and that's what to be or not to be is. And then I should memorize it. But anyway, he goes into this thing and he's debating both sides. You know, he says, well, if I kill myself, I don't have to go through all this anymore. You know, and it sounds like a good thing to do. And then he's like, on the other hand, what if I don't stop when I die? It's very powerful. You know, he says to dream. He says to dream, meaning what if the mind goes on? You know, what if my mind goes on in some other form, like some kind of spirit form? And what would I be like? And what would my thoughts be like? And that's all. I'm not trying to convince you of future lives. I can do it in about a week. Logically, that you would probably tend to accept future life. But let's just say statistically, okay, if this can happen once, it can happen twice. You know what I mean? I don't know how you got here. I don't know what universal force brought you here. You know, I don't know why you happen to be conscious at this moment. You know, I don't know. You don't have to argue why you're one of the living beings of the universe at this moment, but you can't deny that you are, no matter how little sleep you got last night. You are conscious at this moment. If time is infinite, if space is infinite, I mean, just statistically, and I'm not quoting the Buddhist scriptures, okay, I'm just thinking like a Westerner, it could obviously happen again. You know what I mean? And it would probably feel like right after this, because the next conscious moment would be somewhere else it just makes sense. If given all the odds in the universe, this can happen once. Of course it can happen again because the odds are infinite. Time is infinite. Of course it can happen again. Now, what are the details? Do you have to become a bug or not in between? Stuff like that. It doesn't matter. But obviously you can bump into a thing called your life, and obviously it could happen again. Just statistically, there's no argument that of course it could happen again. And then you start thinking, well, is this the only realm? Is this the only way that a person can live? Are there other kinds of creatures in the universe? Come on, of course there are. If even just the stars you can see, there must be millions of planets with people on them, and they probably look a little bit like us, maybe 3 ears or something. But, there must be. You'd be silly to say not. There must be other beings. There must be other realms, and it's not crazy to say that a certain percentage of them must be really scary. You know what I mean? It's not like you don't have to be a genius to say they're all probably not jolly. There's probably a certain amount that are really nice, and there's probably a certain amount that look like this and feel like this. And then surely there's a certain amount that are really, really bad. Because you can see people that live, I think of Beirut at the worst times, 10 years ago. Everyone getting shot at, or Bosnia, plain old people like you and me just can't go outside because they're going to get shot at and killed, and children being shot by snipers. And of course there are people in this world who live for 10 or 20 years being shot at every day, and for nothing. They didn't do anything, So it's not crazy to say there must be some place in the universe that I could go to that would be like a hell. You can call it I believe in hell, or I don't believe in hell. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what your religion says. It's logical. There should be a place like that. And anyway, the person who begins Buddhism is trying to keep themselves out of that. They are saying, I believe something will go on after I die. And I just want to stay out of that kind of place. I don't want to be born in a place like that. I can't see it right now. I don't know if I should believe Dante and all these other guys who describe it, But logically I understand that it's possible. And I want to keep my mind out of that place. And that's the minimum motivation for a Buddhist. You see, it's very interesting that you're not on a Buddhist path, technically. You're not on the first of the 5 Buddhist paths until you are worried about what's going to happen to you when you die. It's very interesting. If all you want to do is be calm in this life, or comfortable, or peaceful, or contented, or something like that, you technically have not entered the Buddhist path yet. Technically, you have to be worried about your death before you take refuge, before you become a Buddhist. That's minimum motivation. Once you get that, you reach stage 2, it's called medium person, medium scope person. Those people have gotten, Don and I were talking about this morning, all the serious Buddhists we know, or almost all of them, no matter how happy they look, and whether they are young or old, all of them had some kind of wonderful disaster in their life. And that's what made them a Buddhist, I didn't have a nervous breakdown and cry for years or something like that, but subconsciously I became a monk because 3 people in my family died in 1 year, like a year and a half. My father, my mother, and my little brother all died in like 18 months or something. And I didn't go crazy, or I didn't cry all the time or something like that. But just deep inside me, something said, you better get your ass moving, Something's happening here, You better find out what's happening. I wasn't torn, and I didn't sit, contemplating it all day long. And I was having a normal life, but something was urging me. That disaster was urging me. There's this lady down in Washington, D.C. who runs one of my Lama centers there. And she seems like a very normal lady. She has 5 sons. They're very beautiful sons. They're all successful. She's very, normal person, and somehow she's this fanatical Buddhist, and you're wondering why, It seems like she has everything. She has a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood, and a nice husband, and perfect family, and great-grandkids. And like, why is this lady a Buddhist? You know. Then one day she told me she had a daughter, and the husband and the daughter were at a rest stop on a highway, and then a truck backed up on them and killed the daughter immediately. And the husband was in the hospital for like 2 years. So that now I say, oh yeah, okay, now I get it. She's really good at Tonglen, by the way. You know, she's the best that I've seen actually. This people come to class in New York, and sometimes you see this really nice guy, and he's like he looks. We have classes on Friday night. The open classes are on Friday night. So here's this guy, and I'm looking at him and saying, why is he here? You know, he should be at a bar somewhere, or he should be at the theater or at the movies. You know, he's very well dressed, and you know, he turns out to be a movie actor. You know that what this guy doing here. You know, it doesn't fit into the normal starving Dharma student pattern. You know? And then I remember wondering why he was there. And then later I found out he had AIDS, and he died. I mean, we took care of him in the last year, and it was horrible. We took turns at night. Sometimes we spent all night there. We covered every night, and it was just horrible. I mean, to see him die, and I've never seen that, and it was really bad. And what I'm trying to say is, level 2 people, medium scope people, they are very sensitive to the fact that even to live this kind of life is very bad. You know, there's nothing good about this kind of life either. You can't find any kind of real happiness here. In their present condition, you're incapable of finding happiness. There's no such thing in your present condition. You know, any good thing you find will be torn away from you. Period. Whether it's your body, or your face, or any kind of talent that you have. You know, if you can paint something, you can play a certain instrument, or you're a good photographer, or anything you enjoy will be torn away from you. You know, any person that you get close to, one of two things will happen. I mean, first of all, in most cases, and this is also what made me a Buddhist, frankly, you will be torn away from the people you love by your own mind. You know, your own mind will start to change. It goes from being very attracted to someone, to being not so attracted to someone, to being not very much attracted to someone, to being slightly irritated with someone, to wondering why they're in your face all the time, to hating them, and divorce, or whatever, you know, breaking up with this person. And that happened. I went through this cycle in, high school and college 3-4 times, and it wasn't like very big trauma, you know. I mean, I had another girlfriend in 6 months or something, but it deeply, profoundly bothered me that the people would always go through this cycle. And my parents went through this horrible divorce, and I was watching them, and I knew how much they loved each other. And then I saw the whole thing happen, and I'm like 12 years old or something. And you're really wondering why. You see what I mean? You're like deeply disturbed by, why is it that two normal people who really like each other, that it always degenerates? You know, that it always, something always comes and makes people's minds change. You know, and after a while they don't like each other anymore, and maybe even they hate each other. Or maybe the worst thing is they just start ignoring each other after a while. You see what I mean? That, it really, really bothered me. Almost worse than the death, you see what I mean? Because that means you can't even be happy before you die, you know? And there's something that changes in your own mind. And I'm not a bad person, you know, I'm not evil, I don't have fangs or anything. But just it kept happening. And it kept happening to everybody around me. With very few people, they keep up the relationship for their life, you know, very, very, very few. I can think my neighbor, my mother's neighbor, her and her husband stayed together. They fought a lot. But generally, they looked pretty happy. You know, you could say more happy than most people. And then he died. He had a heart attack at the grocery store in front of her, you know. Died on the floor of the grocery store in front of her. And this is how it goes. There's only two choices. You start to hate each other, or if you love each other, somebody dies. And then you're alone. She's been alone now for 15 years. It's very sad to watch her sit in this big house by herself, and now she's dying. So there's no... A person of medium scope in the Lam Rim is worried about these things. I mean, is wondering why this is happening, and can you stop it? You know, do you have to go through that? Does life have to be that way? By the way, Buddhism says there's a... Christianity calls it original sin, right? It's like the original mental affliction. Buddhism says there is a condition of your mind that will never allow you to be happy. Okay? No matter what you get, no matter how much you get, no matter who you get a relationship with that you dreamed of, your mind within a few weeks will be dissatisfied. You know, it's not that they are changing. It's not that you are changing. It's not that there's any external problem. They're the same person they were 6 weeks ago. But the human mind has a defect where you cannot be satisfied. And no matter how much money you get, or how much food you eat, or how many friends you have, or how beautiful your spouse is, or whatever, intelligent, talented, caring, loving, your mind within 6 weeks will start to wonder if there's something else that you could go on to. You see, I mean, it's a human mind is built like that. And that's the concern of a person in the middle of the Lam Rim. When you're in the middle of the teachings of the Lam Rim, you're like, why does this happen like this? Can I change it? Can this condition be fixed? Because it makes you unhappy. You know, it makes you unhappy in high school, and it makes you unhappy for the rest of your life. You know, it takes different objects, but basically it drives you throughout your life, and you can never stop or be happy or be contented. There's something driving you to be unhappy. There's something driving you to be dissatisfied, with no matter what you get. And within a short time after meeting anyone or getting anything or getting any position, you're unhappy with it. You want more. And it's just our condition. It's the way we are. That's medium level. Okay, big level, what we call kibu chambo, is thinking. It's called shengi rangi ne tsula pagne shengi ne su shengure, which means extrapolation. It's called extrapolation. Extrapolation means I don't know what's going on in your mind. You know, I look around this room. You know, I see a certain number of people. I assume everyone has their own consciousness operating at some level. I don't know how much. Don makes really good coffee, so I'm like okay for a couple hours. Maybe. You know, assuming for each head there's one consciousness going on here. You know, I don't know what you're thinking. You know, I really don't. I have absolutely no idea. You know, at a certain level, it's not hard for me to believe that you're all Buddhists, and that you're tricking me into talking about these things, so I can fix my own mind, you know, and I appreciate it, and I like it. I'll do it. But rangi ne tsula pagne means assuming you are who you seem to be on a conventional level. If you are just a normal person, and I have no way to know right now. If you are just a normal person, then you have the same problems that I do. You see what I mean? You know, I can tell you about my family, how people died. I can, you know, tell you about, confess to you the real story of my high school girlfriends. You know what I mean? I can go through all that. But I can pretty much assume that you've been through something similar. You know, I can pretty much assume that each person here is driven by dissatisfaction, and that you've had a lot of lousy relationships, and or having one now, okay, and that physically you're starting to notice your body changing and getting worse, and that you've had close people to you die. You know, you can't be 30 years old without somebody close to you dying normally. You know, without death making itself known to you in a very unpleasant way somehow. So I can, rangi ne tsula pagne means take your own condition, which I'm very familiar with, and then extrapolate it onto others. It must be that other people have the same problems, if they are who they seem to be. You know, certain number of tantric deities hiding out in this room. But the rest of us, okay, you can assume that other people are going through similar things. That is the door to enter the greater path, what we call the great scope, the highest scope. You extrapolate from your own condition. Other people must be going through the same thing. It must be just as bad for them. Okay? And that's the beginning of what we call bodhicitta. Bodhicitta means a sincere concern that other people should not suffer anymore. Like that. It's the root text by Maitreya says, Sankepani Shendan Jiryan Natso Baitondu. You want to reach a state of real happiness because you've figured out, logically, you've deduced that other people must be suffering as much as you are, and you would like to help them. You see what I mean? That's bodhicitta. You would like to reach a state of perfect happiness yourself, so that you could, with authority, teach other people how to do it. You see, it's really, I call it twist my arm, The best thing a Buddhist can do to help other people is to reach total bliss yourself. Because then you can teach them with authority how to do it. So it's like, oh gee, that's really bad. I have to get to total bliss first. So I can help other people. By the way, that's the thing. There's this Judeo-Christian thing of guilt and suffering and all this stuff. You don't have to get nailed up to serve other people. That was a great thing. That was Tonglen'. But the normal career pattern for a bodhisattva, frankly, is that you just get more and more blissed out. And that's the best way to serve other people, because then you can help them do it. So really a bodhisattva, the career path for a successful Buddhist in this room even, is to get happier and happier and happier until you reach some kind of bliss, permanent bliss, because you have knowledge, perfection of wisdom, and you know how to pull it off. And then you pull it off. And then you can really help other people. And that's bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is like twist my arm, You have to be happy and get happier and happier until you reach total bliss on behalf of other people. Oh, okay. If you insist, all right. It's like, it's called a blissful path to bliss. The path itself is a lot of fun. The path itself is actually blissful. The path itself is very satisfying. Even if there wasn't any Buddhahood, just to live like a Buddhist would be the smartest thing to do. So that's a great person. Now there's two ways to get that attitude. They say, I can sit here and explain to you what it would be like to have the true intention to reach bliss on behalf of other people. I can sit, you got what I said, you understood my words. But there's a level where you've internalized that intention so well that it takes over your life. Everything you do is motivated by that. You stop doing anything else. You have no interest in anything else. You see what I mean? Every single action you undertake. And in the scripture it says whether you're meditating or eating or sleeping or doing pee-pee. At every moment in your life, your mind is obsessed with reaching this happiness so that you can help other people. And that's bodhicitta. And that's what I always dreamed of when I walked past Brenda getting out of the subway. You see, what would it be like if I really had compassion? That might be really nice. And I would like to be like that. I have a feeling, you have a feeling too, that if you could love other people the way you love yourself, things might change. You have an instinct like that. Like it's totally unreachable in your mind, like, how could I ever love other people as much as I love myself, I mean, it seems impossible. But you get a sense and you have an instinct that it would be really cool if you could do it. And you hear about Jesus and Mother Teresa and the Dalai Lama and all these people who have that. And you're like, I get a little jealous, like, gee, I'd like to be like that. Is there some easy way? So then you get to in the Lamrim, you get to the easy way. And there's two. There's two ways of reaching bodhicitta. Okay? In the Lamrim, there's two different methods. And both of them work equally. You see what I mean? If you get the bodhicitta by path number 1 or you get the bodhicitta by path number 2, it's the same bodhicitta. 100% love for other people as much as you have for yourself. I mean, this is the whole, to me it's like the holy grail. If I could get to that, I have a feeling I'd be happier. You know, you have an instinct. You would like to be like that. And so there are 2 methods. The first one is called the 7-step method. 7-step. And the second one is called exchanging yourself and others. Okay? Exchanging yourself and others. The 7-step one starts out by seeing all other beings as your mother. Okay? And actually, there's a pre-step. There's actually 8 steps. They tricked us. Okay? There's a pre-step which is learning to think of everybody neutrally. You know, that you don't feel attached to some people and you don't feel repulsed by other people. But the first major step of the 7 is to recognize that all other beings have been your mother in your past life. Now, frankly, as a Westerner, I have trouble with that one. It's hard for me to do that one. I didn't grow up in a culture where Mom told me, don't step on that bug, that's your mother from your past life. My mom said, if you could kill as many flies as possible, I'll give you, an ice cream for lunch. And she was a very fine woman. She was maybe the best person I ever met. But in our culture, we don't believe that. We just don't believe that in our culture. So for me, the 7th step is, I tried it. It was the first thing I learned. And it was hard for me because you really don't in the guts. We call it visceral presuppositions in religion class at college. Which means your gut feeling about it is not that they have been your mother. You can try it, you can think about it logically, and you can actually develop it if you work hard at it. But we have some kind of block that came from decades of brainwashing from our culture. Our culture says that's not true, and that's a silly idea to think that that roach on the floor could have been your mother. That's why you shouldn't step on them, Try to do that at your office, I used to go around the office and disable all the mouse traps, And then the guy would come around again and he'd be angry and say, who did that, But you can't, get the guy from Acme Exterminating and say, look, that's been my mother, you don't have that. And it's not part of our culture. I have trouble with the first method, honestly, frankly, I know I'm not supposed to, but I do. The second method for me is much easier. It's called Dakshin Nyamje. Dak means myself. Shen means other people. And then Nyamje is really 2 steps. People translate it as one. It's not correct. Nyamba means to think of yourself and other people as equal. Okay? To learn to think democratically towards other people and yourself. Okay? And then the second step is to Dakshin Jewa. So that's where you exchange yourself and others. And this to me is cool. I can get this one. This one's a lot easier for me. Dakshin Nyamba means, are you going to be democratic in your thinking? Will you give equal rights to other people and yourself? Or are you going to be some kind of, what my grade school teacher said, communist, or something like that. Actually, we were probably like that. But anyway, everyone's like that. Am I going to take care of myself first? And then they can fend for themselves until I'm ready. Or should I be democratic? Every time I have French fries from McDonald's, should the person next to me get half of them, no matter what? Do they have equal rights to whatever happiness I can procure? And that's called Dakshin Nyamba. Do people have equal rights to happiness? Do people have equal claim on my happiness? You see what I mean? If I have $100 and I have 4 very close friends, should I just split it up, $20 each and say, okay, we're all going to split it? Do the people around me have equal rights to my happiness? Or for some reason, do I have more right to it than they have to it? You see what I mean? There's two choices. You know, you have $100. You cash in your 401k. Okay, and you have this money. Now, does it belong to Michael Roach, or should Michael Roach share it with the people around him who need it? Do they have equal rights to my 401k that I have? I mean, it's my name on the account, okay? And it was my paycheck they took it out of. And I happen to be cashing it in nowadays because I need to pay off some things. But do the people around me who need it, do they have equal rights to it? You see what I mean? Is it really equal? Or do or because my name is on it, or because I was involved with collecting it, do I have more right to it than the people around me? You know, do I have more right to be happy than the people near me have right to be happy? Or is it truly democratic? Is it equal rights? You know, with my possessions, they have equal claim on my possessions. You know, which is the case? And that way of thinking is called Dakshin Yamba, which means trying to learn that everyone around you has equal rights to happiness, and even equal rights to your happiness. And that's hard. You know, that's hard. It's not natural. You know, it takes practice. Master Shantideva is a great master of teaching this practice, and he says, start small. Just start with little things. Give away some, I don't like potatoes much, okay? Say I have some potatoes. Okay, twist my arm, I'll give some away to other people. You know, it's the things you don't really care about very much. He says, start with small things. You know, take $1 or $2 and go buy some apples and hand them out to people. You know what I mean? Or a flower or something. Start with something that's not hard for you. And then work. You can work up to where you would give away your whole income to other people, because they have equal right to it as you do, because they are a human being. They're a living being. They have just as much right to your assets. They have just as much right to your to what you own as you do. Okay? That's very hard for us to do. I mean, it's not very natural. But at least it doesn't involve thinking about future lives and stuff that's really hard. You know what I mean? For me, if you give me a choice, you can develop compassion this way, but you have to believe in future lives. You can develop compassion this way, which is very unnatural for you, because it ends up, you're going to have to end up thinking that other people have equal rights to your stuff. Which ever since I had 4 brothers, right? They did not have equal rights to each other's stuff. Unless you know, snuck in and took the other guy's shirt before school or something. But the idea, ever since childhood, that you've been told that you have rights to certain shirts and they don't. It's actually easier for me to overcome that than the thing about future lives. You know? So I went for that. And that's my way. And Dakshin Jewa means not only do they have equal rights to it, but you should go about assuring that they exercise those rights. Okay? It is your responsibility and your pleasure and your honor, and the most intelligent thing a Buddhist can do, to assure that they exercise their rights. Meaning, you do give away your money to those who, that they do have equal rights to your money, and then they actually get your money. Okay. Does that mean if you're a Buddhist, you know, if you're Don Brown and you have this nice house there, that you have to go find all the homeless people you can and split it up with them or something like that? It does not mean that. Okay. Master Shantideva is very clear, and we're going to talk about it later. You cannot remove the poverty of the world because you didn't create it. Okay. Who created it? We'll talk about it. You have to be ready to give away your house, and when it's the right time and the right place. You know, Lama Sopa needs a place to stay or something. Then boom, you know, give it to him. You know what I mean? In other words, a Buddhist shouldn't. You're not being asked in Buddhism to just give away everything you have indiscriminately. You know, you're supposed to think carefully. This would be of great benefit to many people. This would be very helpful to many people, and then you choose very carefully how you give it away. But eventually, you do. You know, give away at the right time, in the right place. You have no problem to give away everything you have. There was a Dalai Lama, I think it was Kelsang Gyatso, the 7th Dalai Lama, who's the richest dude in Tibet. forget it. When the 14th Dalai Lama left Tibet, just before that he had mule trains going out with bricks of gold. Okay, I mean, he didn't run away on a. He did run away on a horse, but there were a lot of other donkeys that went ahead. And, by the way, that money was all lost. But anyway, there were gold was shipped out. I mean, the Dalai Lama was very wealthy. I mean, the Dalai Lama owned much of the wealth in Tibet. And the 7th Dalai Lama said, I understand that I have authority to spend most of the gold in Tibet. It's mine. But if you ask me, the only thing I own is my dorji and my bell. You know, my vajra and my bell. That's the only thing I consider mine. And the rest is for other people. You know, the rest is to help other people. And he really only considered himself to own those two things. His ritual objects, you know. And so I'm not saying that Dakshin Nyamje, the practice you are about to undertake, is not going to lead up to you having to give away your house to Brenda. Okay? That's not the point. It has to lead up to the state of mind where you really do believe that Brenda has equal rights to your house. And that would lead you to it would naturally lead you to share your wealth, your possessions with other people. In a smart way, in a sensitive way, in a carefully planned way. And a Buddhist practitioner is required by Buddhist practice to have enough things to live comfortably so you can succeed in your practice. Okay? It's not like you have to give away your house and go sit in the forest. I tried sitting in a cave. It's very uncomfortable. It's noisy. Okay? I mean, you wouldn't believe it. I did 10 days in a cave in Arizona, and you can't get any meditation done. It's like, forget it, at night all these things come out, you know. They're really noisy. You know, it sounds very romantic. I don't suggest it. The best thing is a nice, quiet house that has a refrigerator and running water and a good toilet and a nice living room, and you sit there and you meditate. And as a Buddhist, you should try to set up those circumstances for yourself. You should have a comfortable place, reasonable place, decent food, you know, good health care, and take care of yourself and practice well. And that's the whole point. Then you get to total bliss, and then you can help other people. So don't think that the result of this practice is going to be that you have to give away everything right away. You know, it'll come in the right way. You will find the right way, and it'll be very sweet. The practice on Tonglen comes right there. And that's going to be the end of my talk, okay? Then we're going to meditate. But that's where Tonglen comes, okay? It comes in the practice of exchanging yourself with others. It comes in the practice of establishing the fact that other people have equal rights to happiness, even your own happiness, and then carrying out that, acting on that, you know, doing what you need to do to allow them to exercise that right to your property and to everything else you own. Okay? But it doesn't mean that you have to come out of here today and give away all your money to the first person you meet. That's not the point. The point is to develop compassion by using these ideas. And you will. You cannot, as a Buddhist, remove the poverty of the planet. If that's the judge of enlightenment, then the Buddha has failed already. There is no Buddha, because there's still poverty. Okay? Doesn't mean that you would, of course, try to help people who are poor. Absolutely, you spend your whole life doing that. But you will become enlightened before the last poor person is finished. You see what I mean? That's the way it is. Because what's making them poor is not coming from your side, it's coming from their side. So that's where Tonglen fits in the long run. What happens after that in the long run, right? I've set you up with all the stages up to Tonglen. We're in the middle of the second way of getting compassion. We're in the middle of the practice called exchanging yourself with others. And then Tonglen fits right in there. This meditation you're going to do for 4 days fits right in there. What happens after that? Once you get compassion, once you honestly see that other people have equal rights to your happiness, and once you decide to help them exercise those rights, which is Dakshin Nyamba and Dakshin Jewa, then you have to find out what is the way of life of a bodhisattva. You know, how do bodhisattvas act? once I have compassion, what am I supposed to do? How do I give away my stuff? What else do bodhisattvas do? And that's where you get into the 6 perfections. Okay? Roughly, learning how to give. Second one, learning how to live an ethical life. Third one, yeah, I say it in a negative way. How not to get angry. Okay? I mean, patience is, you can call it patience, but really it's the art of not getting angry when you should. Okay? Or when you could, alright? It's the art of, at the moment, in the heat of the moment, it's the art of stopping it. And you know the difference. It's one thing to sit and study patience in a book. It's another thing when it's 4 in the morning and you got to get up at 6:30 and go teach at this place. And the flight from Cleveland is still not in. And some student says something and you're already mad. It doesn't matter who said anything. Like, the next person is going to get it, right? And you're like, and to right at that critical moment, to turn on your Buddhism is the third perfection. And it only comes at those special occasions when the flight is 3 hours late. You didn't sleep the night before either, and you only get a chance like once every 3 days to do the real perfection of patience. You can study it all day, but it's those special moments, to turn it on at that moment. 4th perfection, joyful effort, which is, you can, all these books and stuff like that. Shantideva said, Sungkan Gela Dro'o. Perfection number 4 is to have a good time being a Buddhist. I went out with a student's mother the other day. I like to try to impress the parents, because then they'll support the kids. I have a lot of 20-year-old students. So, I spent a lot of money and I really worked hard. And I was expecting a good review, And so the next day I said, how did she like me, And they said, pretty good, and I already know there's a problem, They're like, and I said, what's wrong, What, I hear in your voice something, what's wrong? They said, well, they said you're a little eccentric, And I said, then I'm starting to feel bad, because, I think it's very important that the parents understand, I think it's very important that your parents understand what you're trying to do, no matter how old you are, if they're still alive, right? And the lady says, well, it's not so bad. They said you're eccentric because you're always giggling and laughing and you act like a 5-year-old. And then I'm thinking, that's eccentric, that's okay. I mean, if you really get into Buddhism in a proper way, you'll have a lot of fun and you'll enjoy it. And number 4, perfection number 4, is that you're required to enjoy it. You're required to have a good time with it. And if you're doing good Buddhism with good Buddhist friends, it's a party all day long. It's a Dharma party. And people visit us and they're like, sometimes they're even put off by it, I think, a little bit. But we do have a good time. We really do have a good time. And it's fun to be good. And that's perfection number 4. Number 5 is concentration. Learning to meditate properly. Okay. And then number 6 is, you can call it wisdom. Nowadays I'm into the word worldview. How do you see your world? What do you think runs the world? Where do the good things in your life come from? Where do the bad things come from? Why are you here? What's going to happen to you now? Why is the world going on like this? Stuff like that. Understanding emptiness, like we spoke about last night. And then the other ones which are really fun.